Today on Building Things with Ben, I'm going to show you how I transformed a damaged TV table and turned it into this beautiful live edge TV stand. To give you a little background as to why I'm redoing this TV stand is this stand belongs to my sister, and she was in the process of moving, and while we were in transit, the top glass shelf shattered. So there were still glass shelves down here, but my sister asked me to go and redo one by using some plywood sheets or something so that she can at least get her TV up in there. But instead, I'm going to surprise her and actually make a live edge TV stand for her. She really likes that live edge, and the special part about the wood that I'm using in today's video is that we harvested it from a property that we own, and it's called heartwood, and it has been curing now in my garage for over 2 years. And because my sister means so much to me and I love her so much, that I wanted to use a little piece of heartwood into this TV stand and make something that is really truly unique and something that would mean something to my sister. So sit tight and I will put you through the process as to how I actually built the table. Okay, now I've selected the wood that I'm going to be using for this TV stand slash table. I've got some black cherry live edge material. I've also got some black cherry that I've already previously cut, and I have one piece of ash down in the bottom. And then on the far side over there, I have my board already set up. Then I'm going to screw these pieces down into that board so I can get a nice clean cut on my table saw. Okay, so I've screwed down the black cherry onto my sled. As you can see, I've gone right through the center of the wood over here. I only need 6-foot pieces of this material, and I've made this 100 inches, so just over 8 feet. And so the pieces that I've actually screwed through, I'm not going to be using, so it's okay for me to screw through. I got all the boards now planed. It came out really nice. I started off with pieces that were just under 3/4 of an inch, and I got these all down to 9/16. So now the next step is to see if I can get the bark off and then start joining the pieces together. Alright, so the bark came off really well. It came off a lot better than I had first anticipated. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some 40 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to take down the dark part on the live edge, smooth it out, and see how that works. Alright, I just finished cutting 3 pieces of 8-inch wide black cherry for the back sides of the shelves. Now I need a total of 16 inches for my metal frame, and looking at the live edge pieces, I'll have exactly 16 inches. So I want it to hang out just a little bit. So what I'm doing here right now is I'm going to cut in 2-inch strips of the ash, and then I'm going to put that in between the black cherry just to give it kind of an accent piece. Now I've got the 3 pieces for each of the shelves. I've got the bottom shelf, middle, and the top. The top one I didn't have enough room to go and put onto my work table. But the general idea here is that the each one of the shelves is about 1 inch shorter than the next, so it should be able to give a nice kind of tiered look once I get it put together and then put onto the TV stand. Stage in building this table is figuring out what pieces are going to go with what shelf. So I've got them all lined up, fronts, middle, and the back. And what I'm noticing here is I cut the ash piece in the middle, but it's starting to twist on me now that I've cut it yesterday. So what I'm doing tonight is I'm making all of my little marks here, and I'm going to use a biscuit joiner and see if I can go and try and get all of these pieces lined up and hopefully glued before these things warp too much, and hopefully it holds it all together. Right now, I've needed to go and recruit some help, so I've got my son out here to go and give me a hand to push up against these boards as I am using the biscuit joiner, because I'm finding that as I'm pushing, the sawhorses are tipping over. And then when we finish doing the joints here, then what we do is we go inside and we clean out all the sawdust out of here so that we can get the biscuits put in. All right, now it's time for glue. Let's get some of the glue on here, make sure we have enough that it's going to adhere. I'll try one little bead down here first, see how we make out. Smear it out. Right now I'm not using glue in and around where the biscuits are, because I was reading or seeing on the YouTube about how that sinks and it contracts and it creates little divots when you put glue in there. So they said use it as a spacer for now, but don't worry about actually gluing it. Alright, now I've got glue on both sides of these pieces. And I almost made a mistake there. I had the top, I was going to put the top down. But what I've got is I got little marks where it identifies where all of the biscuits go. So I'm just going to line those up. Make sure they're all in, especially on the one side. Right. And now I'll do the second side. And now I'm going to just hold these pieces, make sure that everything is good here, and I'm going to just, once again, I looked on YouTube to see how much pressure do you add in, and the response was just enough. So I'm hoping I'm understanding what just enough is. Well, I got all the pieces together here now. I've done a double-decker layer, and I've used my pipe clamps down at the bottom to squeeze that together, and then I've used my Irwin quick grips to try and keep the pieces together. I've used 4-inch pieces of wood from my cutoffs out of the garage, so I know this is perfectly level between the two, squishing everything together, and then I'm going to leave this for the evening and see if it dries. But so far so good. Both of these are straight. I will, however, be going over to another section where my boards have started to warp, and I'm going to see if I can try and fix that. But for now, at least I have 2 out of 3 shelves in good shape, and let's hope they stay that way. I've now glued my twisted board all together. It looks like I've got the thing straight again, so I'm going to just leave these clamps on and see how it works. But as you can see, lots of the clamps trying to hold everything together to make sure it doesn't move. I want to make sure I do a really good job here. Over on the other side, I just finished checking, making sure that everything was level. I did notice one area that it was bowing down at the far end, so I've added an additional brace just to hold everything together, and hopefully this thing sets up really nice. But that's it for now. I'm going to let this sit and then probably take the clamps off in about 2 days and give it a good chance to dry. I am now on the final surface of the wood. This is now the top of the TV unit / stand, and I want to make sure that this one is done really, really well. So I saved this one for last. So what I've learned on the other 5 sides is the best combination of sandpaper for me with the hardwood has been the following. I started off with the belt sander. I have a 40 grit sandpaper on there, and then that is to take out any of the ridges that are created when I joined all of these pieces together. And also because the carpenter's glue is so hard, this works really, really well in order to go and get that out. Keep in mind that when you do that, you do have to follow the grain, because when I was going sideways on the grain, the marks were really hard to get out afterwards. Then I use the quarter sheet palm sander, and I start off with a 60 grit paper, then I go to a 100 grit, 150, and then I finish the whole thing off by using a 220 grit paper. And if you are going to stain, I would highly recommend that you stop at the 150 at the most. What happens there is if you go up to the 220, the wood has come out so smooth and flat that there won't be enough bite for the stain to go and actually soak into the wood. So if you are going to be doing one of these tables on your own, stop at the 150 if you're going to stain it. But if you want to do like what I'm going to do and put a clear coat on, you could go right up to the 220 or even higher if you like. Gives you a nice smooth finish, and you should be really happy with the product. So let's keep going, and I'll sand the next one. Next on the agenda is to trying to go and finish off this front leading edge. So the way that I'm going to do that to still keep the curves on the wood is I'm going to use some of these sponges that I got at Home Depot. I'm going to start with a 120 grit, I'm going to move my way to a 180 grit, and then finally on to a 220 grit. So I'm just going to take the sponge in one of these little holsters that you can buy, and then I'm going to just start taking down the edge, and hopefully it keeps the original feel and look of the board. The next item that we have to do here is cut this shelf. So I'm starting with the middle shelf, and I am measuring on the frame here, and I'm getting just a little bit over 66.5 inches. So now the idea here is I need to go and figure out the sweet spot for 66.5 inches so that I can get rid of any of the cracks that are at the end. And also on this board, what you can't see is it starts to dive in a little bit. So I'm going to play around with this, try and get the best 66 inches, 66.5 inches out of this board, and then I'm going to cut it and then throw it into the shelf. Next, we're going to cut this. I'm going to be using my skill saw to cut this particular piece of wood, and then I'm going to sand it when I'm done. What I've done is measure it over to see how far it is from the blade over to the guide, make sure that I'm at the right line here. And well, you know what, this is probably the most nerve-wracking part of the whole project, because this is a finished board, but we'll see how this one goes. So here we go. Now I've got all the shelves cut, and they are all dry fit into the stand. I'm really pleased with how this thing is turning out so far, But one thing that I'm not so happy about is the way that these corners are. I really would like to soften them up a bit. So what I've done is I've pulled out one of my precision craftsman tools, and which will make a radius. So here it is, a roll of masking tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up from the underside, and I am going to cut this radius and soften it all up, sand it all down, so that when you are close to the TV stand, you're not going to hurt yourself by going into a sharp edge. And then I'll soften up this edge over here a little bit, and then I think we're pretty much ready to go and start putting the clear coat on. So up next, I'll go use the jigsaw and we'll cut it and move forward. The next process in this whole thing is that I now want to go and put the clear coat on everything. The product that I'm going to try, I haven't used this product before, but it's by Varathane, and it's a water-based product. It's called Diamond Wood Finish, and it's a semi-gloss, crystal clear, non-yellowing. And all the reviews that I have seen on it with the internet and YouTube and whatnot says that it's a really good product, doesn't smell as much, and it dries quickly. So in order to get this prepped, I tried to wipe everything down with a cloth beforehand to get rid of the sawdust and whatnot, but I am actually going to use a tack cloth and wipe down all the surfaces before I paint, and then that way there won't be any little bits of sawdust or dust, and I should be able to have a smoother finish. I've now finished doing the first coat, and what it says is to sand with 220 grit sandpaper. So I've got the sponge, 220 grit. I'm going to sand these things up and then apply the second coat. The shelves are finally done. This is looking great. We're getting a really nice finish. You can see how it's reflective. with the lights up above. I am very, very impressed with the product that we got here. So I need to go and get these fastened into the TV stand that you can see over here. This is going to be a little bit of a trick, and I'm going to need to support it, but I don't think I'm going to have too much of a problem. And well, that's the next step. The next stage in this whole process is I've had to go in and put in metal furniture clips. They are 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch, and I've actually got this table on its side. This is the top, this is the middle shelf, this is the bottom shelf. What I got to do next is I'm going to go take the shelves that I've finished, and I'm going to start placing them inside. I am going to use some clamps and whatnot to hold it, because I did get some warping on some of the shelves, and hopefully, because they are so thin, they are about 9/16 of an inch thick, hopefully with the clamps I'm going to be able to straighten this all out, and hopefully with all of the clips, the furniture clips that I put in here, there's going to be enough to support it and take out a little bit of the work. I've now got the shelf inside the TV stand. What I've done is I've used my spreader bars to help take the warp out of the boards like I was talking about before. And right now it looks like the board is all straight. So what I got is everything is tightly in place. I'm going to pre-drill every screw, and then I'm going to start screwing in from the back side and see how this holds up. We were successful with getting the bottom shelf in, but what I've noticed here is that if I go to screw in the second shelf, I'm never going to get the screws in on the top one. So what I've decided to do here is clamp down this top shelf, and I'm going to screw this one in next, followed by the middle shelf, and that should do it. Everything went together really, really well. We've got all 3 shelves put in. The furniture brackets were really good in helping to take out the bow in the shelves. Right now, any of the bow is hardly even noticeable. So I think it turned out really nice, and I'm quite pleased with it. After 40 hours worth of work, the project is finally complete. I think it turned out really, really well, and I think my sister's gonna love it. So thanks for watching another episode of Building Things with Ben.